Hi everybody, welcome back to Jackson Jet Setting. Today I'm reviewing my 6-night cruise on board the Symphony of the Seas. The Symphony of the Seas is an Oasis-class vessel launched in 2018, one of the newer ships in Royal Caribbean's fleet. I'm going to review everything about my cruise in this video, including dining, things to do on the ship, my cabin, and the overall itinerary. If you're looking for a full ship tour of the Symphony of the Seas, we have that up on the channel, as well as some tips and tricks, and a whole vlog series specifically made during my voyage. So let's get started, but before we do, if you like cruise videos and want to support, like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. The Oasis class were once the largest ships on Earth, now surpassed by Icon of the Seas. Symphony of the Seas was the largest until 2022, when Wonder of the Seas was launched. My sailing on an Oasis class ship was pretty lackluster during my first sailing. I felt like it was very overpacked and the long lines really just detracted from my vacation. However, my sailing on Symphony of the Seas was one of my most favorites yet. For one, the ship feels very brand new, it's in fantastic shape, it has an amazing crew, and it shares many of the same features that the newest in the fleet have. The same quibbles, though, I have about some of the design elements of the Oasis class ships remains. There aren't a ton of ocean views from the public spaces on the lower decks, and many decks dead end, so it's kind of hard to navigate a ship. It's a very large ship, so know that if you're going to forget something maybe in your cabin, you might be having a long walk back. So let's start with everyone's favorite topic, food. My brother-in-law and I got the unlimited dining package on our sailing, which is my biggest recommendation on the Oasis class ships. The main dining room, while included, is massive and can get very busy at meal times. Avoiding that mess is like a benefit of its own, in my opinion. I'm not really a fan of the new Royal Caribbean menu redesign either. Obviously, it was made for efficiency purposes, so it sped up dinner a little bit, but many of my go-to favorites were eliminated, and what there is now, I just am not really impressed with. Some of my favorite restaurants on board are 150 Central Park. Their menu is really cool. It's kind of a new American seafood / steak restaurant, really high quality. Love the elegant feel of the restaurant. Kind of how I wish Chop's Grill felt when I walked inside. It's kind of something that you're going to visit, something fancy in New York. I love the fried cheesecake for dessert as well, so do not miss out on that. So it's only open for dinner, but definitely make a reservation there, even if you don't have the unlimited dining package. It was my first time dining at Wonderland, which I am a fan of kind of molecular gastronomy and really kind of wild cuisine. Try and find those types of restaurants from time to time around the world. It was really cool to have that concept on a cruise ship. I felt like it was executed pretty well. Most of the dishes were pretty amazing. We let the server just choose a couple for us. It was really delicious. So I do recommend a pretty fun dinner in Wonderland. I'm not really a big fan of the Alice in Wonderland theme. I think they could probably ditch that and just stick to kind of what the food is about, but overall a really good time. We only dined at Jamie's Italian for lunch, and we had a really good lunch. I didn't like Jamie's the last time I was on board a ship with that concept, but it did surprise us. We didn't make it there for dinner. We had only 6 nights really, and we wanted to hit some of our favorites on board, but I would probably try Jamie's Italian again. If Giovanni's is on board, I'm a little bit more excited by that traditional Italian concept, but it was nice to try at least for an embarkation lunch. I'd say the only disappointing meal, and it was barely disappointing, was Hooked. Hooked on Symphony of the Seas is in probably the best location of any specialty restaurant on board. It's above the solarium in the forward part of the vessel. It's got amazing views out the front of the ship, so a really great location, and that probably puts it over the edge of something that I would probably repeat again just for that. But the food itself was a little slow in terms of getting to us. It was kind of slow service. Probably the only time we had slow service the entire voyage, which is pretty lucky. I think that's a pretty amazing feat in itself and shows how good the crew is on Symphony of the Seas. But my food was not that great. I had a surf and turf. The lobster was pretty good, but my steak was pretty cooked through and not all that delicious. So a few times we also went to Playmakers to use our $20 credit. So the unlimited dining package gives you a $20 credit at each a la carte restaurant each day. Usually goes unused just because there's so much food on board. But it is nice to have in your back pocket because you can order 1 or 2 items off of the Playmakers menu, maybe if you're watching a sporting event, and not have to pay for it out of pocket, which is amazing. So We did try that. It was just okay. I remember it being a little bit better on other sailings. Just a lot of fried options. I wish there were maybe, some fancy salads or something like that in the menu there that I could use the credit for. I am a big fan of a few of the complimentary concepts on board. El Loco Fresh is a great option. It's essentially the pool restaurant. It's got great Mexican food. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I have good Mexican food all the time. Always feel like the food here is pretty flavorful. The line can definitely get long during the day, so it does move relatively fast, I've found, but it does get kind of long, so that is one downside. In terms of embarkation, it was super, super easy. We got there a little bit before our boarding time. We sailed right through all the security checks, all the ticket checks. Waited about 10-15 minutes in very comfortable seats in Port Everglades, which is in Fort Lauderdale, for the embarkation to begin. And once that did begin, it was very orderly. They took people section by section. We were on board maybe 5 or 6 minutes after they began the embarkation process. So I really love Royal Caribbean for that. I think that their boarding and deboarding is just the most organized across the cruise industry and very simple and easy to use. I love being able to have the ticket in my wallet on my Apple iPhone, so it's super easy just to pull up when people need it, and I can't recommend that enough. So definitely add that to your Apple device before sailing. For things to do on the ship, I felt like the entertainment on board was amazing. There are a lot of shows that require pre-booking, but even if you miss out on that before your cruise, there are a lot of opportunities to stand by once on board the ship, at least on our sailing. Highlights were the Aqua Theater show Hero, the 2 ice skating shows. I actually didn't know there would be 2 ice skating shows. That was kind of a surprise to me. And Hairspray, the Broadway show. There's also a production show Flight, which is exclusive to Symphony with some really cool effects. Wasn't really a fan of the actual content of the show, but some of the parts of the show were actually pretty entertaining, and overall was a great way to spend 45 minutes. Other activities throughout the day like trivia were really fun, but I felt like the venues chosen to host these events were a little too small. On air is the karaoke bar on the Royal Promenade, and that was the site of a lot of activities throughout the cruise, and it was often hard to find a seat. Free activities like the zip line, mini golf, the flow rider, and the rock climbing wall are all awesome additions to the vacation and made for fun memories on board. But I love finding a quiet spot, maybe on the jogging track, which has some seating on the aft side, and watching the ship cruise through the ocean. It's like my favorite thing to do on a ship. Our cabin was forward with a bridge view over the bow of the ship. I loved this view, though the cabin did get a little hot during the day due to the large slanted windows. Yeah, it's kind of a first world problem, but it's just how we felt. It's also a long walk to the elevators from the location of this cabin, so keep that in mind if you have mobility issues. The size of the room was great, however, and had plenty of room for the 2 of us. Now for the itinerary. Our ship stopped in Labadee, Haiti, Falmouth, Jamaica, and Nassau, Bahamas. Labadee is one of my absolute favorite ports. It's beautiful and a relaxing day on shore. If you've never been, it's Royal Caribbean's private peninsula in the country of Haiti. We had an awesome time on a speedboat and snorkel excursion in the morning, and then went over to have some lunch on the beach. Sadly, the unrest in the country has canceled many of the sailings after ours, so hopefully ships can return to Haiti soon, and definitely look for Labadee. Falmouth, Jamaica is quickly becoming my least favorite port. I love the country of Jamaica and the things to do on the island, but the port itself is too far away from the activities in Ochos Rios, like Dunn's River Falls. An hour to an hour and a half each way in a minibus stuck in traffic isn't a great way to start or end a day in port. Our tour went to a few places on the island, some river tubing, which was a lot of fun, Dunn's River Falls, which is fun to do once, but slow with a big group and a very touristy activity, and a lunch spot near the river, and that was not very good and very touristy. We also had a forced stop at a depressing jewelry store / souvenir store, and it was entirely too long when you just want to get back to the ship. So this is one big reason why I don't like booking kind of long excursions with the actual ship. Sometimes you just fall into these little touristy situations and it's just not a lot of fun. So next time I'll probably look to book an excursion locally so I can avoid this. Nassau is not my favorite port either, but it's beginning to grow on me a little bit. The new port is a nice addition. It makes for a better experience once off the ship. It's a little less chaotic, a little bit more friendly. We walked on our own up the hill to the John Watling's distillery, which is a great free tour in a historic home with a reasonably priced drinks in the bar after a free tasting. I highly recommend doing this. You can check out my daily vlogs in each port, though, from our cruise for more on what we did on Symphony of the Seas. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and check out all the other Royal Caribbean content that I have posted up on the channel. Happy sailings!